You're watching Better Business Bureau's Business at its Best, brought to you by Ataraxis. You've got employees, we've got solutions. Human resources, insurance, benefits, and payroll. Our business is your business. BBB's Business at its Best.
Bogus invoices, slamming, loan scams, thieves set the sights on businesses. Often, the smaller the better. Dale Dixon here, and this is Business at its Best. For the next half hour, we show you how scammers are going after companies in Idaho, and most importantly, how to protect yourself. On the show today, is it a $500 mistake, or has an employee figured out a way to rip off an employer? We take a look at theft from the inside and how to stop it. Certified fraud examiner stops in to show us the best ways to stop fraud cold in its tracks. Then a police officer shares what he sees so you know the signs and can be aware. Finally, we wrap up with the common sense approach to prevent crime at your company. A big thank you to the TV stations in Idaho making this show possible each week. We're airing on KTVB's very own 24/7 in Twin Falls and Boise, and Local News 8's Now channel in East Idaho. Each week, we bring experts from the business world to the university classroom to help your company. As we focus on fighting fraud today, we start on campus. Dr. Ron Galloway with Northwest Nazarene University with campuses in Idaho Falls, Twin Falls, and Nampa joins us. Dr. Galloway, thanks so much for being with us today. So you're bringing a great story about a conversation you overheard where somebody overpaid a supplier by about $500. Tell us the story.
Right. I was in a business this week. It happens to be a business that doesn't have price tags on their products. And one employee was telling another one, man, I made a mistake. I overpaid by $500. I'm going to have to make it up somehow.
Somehow?
Yeah. And
it was a supplier, so somebody that had been bringing
products in. You know, there are a lot of businesses. It could be a big supplier. It could be an individual. There are places out there that take mom and pop type things. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, that's a pretty big lump for this business to take. And then the next items that I was going to buy had no price tags on them. And so the question to me was, well, does so much sound like about right? Are you willing to pay this much? There was no price tag on it. And I got to thinking as I was making my purchases that perhaps I was beginning to make up part of that $500, and I didn't know how long he had to make it up. But as an employer, a couple of things. One is, would you want your employees talking about that in front of customers?
So this is a great learning opportunity for the business watching this. And so, number one, it's employee training.
Sure. Why wasn't this employee trained to keep this conversation private? If it was a big thing on his or his mind, then why didn't he do it someplace that was safer than out in public where all of the customers could hear? And no customer could be further away than 10 feet from that counter at any place.
Because it was a small confined space.
Right. Yeah.
So number one, employee training on these kind of situations is crucial, and also probably a level of oversight on the part of the business owner.
Correct. I will be a little more skeptical as I go in and make sure that I will check prices elsewhere before I go back into that location to make sure that I'm not being scammed as an employee, as a purchaser in that location. So the employer could have done a better job, or can do a better job of training his employees. I don't know why he overpaid by $500. I don't know that deal.
I think it's important to recognize that this kind of stuff could happen more often than we even know.
Sure.
If we just pay attention, you were clued in on this, and so you were paying attention to the process.
Well, I was thinking about this program, and we had just had interaction, you and I, and then this happened. I thought, wow. Well, this might be useful as a story.
It's the perfect story to share, and we just have less than a minute left, but you also do a lot of travel internationally, and you see that as an opportunity to scam local businesses.
Yes, whenever you're doing things internationally, remember that there are several places where things can go amiss. Exchange rates, decimal points are really easy to miss. An 8,000 whatever currency, peso or whatever currency item could be 80,000. I mean, they can make those changes so quickly on you. And remember that most currencies in the world change from time to time. Most nations change their currency every 8 years. So an 80,000 bill one day might be an 8,000 bill the next, and they might give you old currency as change. Those are just two small areas.
Stay up on it. Dr. Ron Galloway, NNU, thank you so much for being with us. Great things to keep in mind as we help businesses avoid scams. And coming up next, a certified fraud examiner joins us. He'll show us what he sees so often costing businesses in Idaho thousands of dollars. You're watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. Welcome back to Business at its Best. Better Business Bureau, serving the Snake River region, helps people buy wisely and companies sell ethically. When you see BBB accredited business, you know a company has promised to uphold BBB's standards for trust. It's advertise honestly, tell the truth, be transparent, be responsive, safeguard privacy, and honor promises. Well, are you really tuned in to your business so you know what's going on and the risks you face from fraud? It's a great question to ask yourself. And if you're saying, well, I don't have to worry about getting ripped off, guess what? You are the prime target. Les Lake is the Regional Forensic Services Manager with Eide Bailly. Les, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Dale.
And so we talk about this idea of fraud. What are the top 3 things that you keep seeing over and over again as you walk into these businesses, or you're called in to help clean up the mess and find out exactly what caused the mess when you get on scene?
Consistently, Dale, in today's market, what I'm seeing are 3 areas. One is procurement fraud, the other is corruption, and the third area has to do with identity theft.
So let's lay out procurement fraud real quick so folks know exactly what that is.
The procurement fraud schemes generally consist of vendor schemes where suppliers and someone on the inside are working together, or they may be working separately to take advantage of a business, from their purchasing process, at one point or another in that process. Also, then it goes on to the next part where we get into then paying on the paying the payables, when they're due, the vendor invoices. And so there's a number of schemes and angles that they can perpetrate at that time.
All things to keep our eyes open. Corruption.
Corruption speaks for itself. When we talk about that, we're talking about kickbacks, we're talking about bribery, we're also talking about management's influence and being able to use your influence for personal gain in the business actually making decisions, or vendors who want to do business with your company, the risk that they take if they want to pass on that, or what it's really going to be involved to get your business. And they may have to give you a kickback to do it. It's not legal, but they do it.
Now, we talked about the business owner who says this isn't going to happen to me. And you've got some numbers that show just how big of a deal this really is.
I'm glad that you really want to address that point, because time and time again in my outreach, a lot of it has to do with prevention. And business owners say, well, where's it going to affect me? And the answer is real simple. 3 out of 4 of us in our career, or 75% of us, actually will be victimized by fraud.
Okay.
It's going to happen. It's not when.
It's if.
And the average loss, absolutely, it's when. And the average loss, per event right now, based on numbers from the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, their statistics confirm that the average loss is $155,000 per event.
Most of the businesses I know couldn't handle something like that, the small businesses.
We address that, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that key point right there, in order to recover from a $155,000 loss, you have to go out and generate 10 times that. In business that you don't already have, you have to hustle the business, you have to complete the work, take care of the administrative things, and pay the tax just to recover from that.
So we're running tight on time, but you brought us some specific things that a business can do to fight fraud, and we're going to put those up on the screen. And you say you set the tone at the top. The
tone at the top is absolutely the most important. What the top management do and what they tell the employees to do are adamant. If they have a zero tolerance for fraud, they've got to communicate that, and then they also have to walk the talk.
And that means also having an independent review piece in place.
Absolutely. As you have independent review measures for operational and financial performance, that really helps. But oftentimes we very rarely monitor the activities of our key employees, but that's really an important measure that you should do.
And a good way for employees to report to their boss, you call it a fraud hotline?
Absolutely. You need to have that open door policy, whether it's an 800 number, whether it's the open door, but you need to be able to access management to let them know when something isn't right.
And we've talked about education already, and then you also recommend that folks just act quickly through this process.
That's it. Don't put it off. Don't put it, when that comes across your desk, don't put it off in the to-do pile for tomorrow, next month, next year, because it could be that $400,000 embezzlement that puts you out of business.
All right, Les Lake, Eide Bailly, thanks so much for being with us today. Great information. And next on Business at its Best, we go to the front line on fighting fraud with law enforcement. You're watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. Ataraxis makes this program possible each week. The company takes care of the day-to-day work of HR, benefits, and payroll so a business owner can focus on growing the business. And we're spending this half hour talking about the top scams against business in Idaho. Deputy Chief Tracy Basterrachea with the Meridian Police Department joins us. Tracy, thanks so much for being with us today. Just during the break, you got me wondering, this is just incredible, but what are some of the things that you're seeing people scam business out of a lot of money?
Well, one of the most recent things that we've been dealing with are what we call Western Union or Gold Dot Fund frauds, where two people will go into a business that deal with the Western Union cards or the Gold Dot cards. One person will get that card, they'll scratch the numbers off the back so they can see the numbers on it, and they provide those numbers to the second person in the store, and then they go to the cashier to load funds on that card or activate that card. While the cashier is doing that, the person making the transaction tells them, well, I forgot my wallet, let me run out to the car and get it. And they leave the store and they don't return. The second person has already taken those numbers and they have transferred those funds. And there's really no way for us to track that.
So it's happening so fast.
Happening within seconds.
In seconds. What's the recommendation for a business to avoid something like that happening?
Really make sure that they're paying up front before you activate that card. That is really the simplest way to do it. It's as simple as things we tell them on the credit card transactions. We deal with a lot of counterfeit credit cards with travelers who come through the area. They go to these big box stores and they make very high-end purchases, spend thousands of dollars in those stores, and then end up returning them to other stores. Do simple things that you're asked to do. Ask for identification and confirm that identification with people. You know, even on the back of my credit cards, I'll put CID, and I will go into a store in uniform, and I have clerks ask me to see my ID. And people laugh.
This is what you want.
But that's exactly what I want, whether I'm in uniform or not.
But so everywhere this show is airing, it's a major corridor, I-84, I-15, Idaho Falls, Twin Falls, the Treasure Valley. So this is a big deal for every business along that corridor.
It is a huge deal for every business along the corridor. The Western Union Gold Dot frauds, as well as the scams with the counterfeit credit cards. Our travelers are coming through. The other issue that we're starting to see in the area is these travelers come through and they actually go to businesses and watch as they put their mail out, and they will actually take the mail and create counterfeit checks based upon what they've taken out of the mail. So we really want to make sure that when businesses are putting their mail out, it really is better to hand it right to the postman or take it to the post office.
Get it into a locked box as quick as possible.
Absolutely.
All right. Deputy Chief Tracy Basterrachea from Meridian Police Department, thanks so much for that information for our businesses. We will definitely be on the lookout. And coming up next on the show, the fraud fighting checklist for your business. Grab a pen and paper to save a lot of money. You're watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. Welcome back to Business at its Best. This is a weekly half-hour TV show airing across South Idaho from east to west. The show is just what the name implies. We showcase companies in Idaho setting a standard, doing what's right, finding success, and driving the local economy. You've seen the trucks on the roads and in the parking lots of businesses from Jackson Hole, Wyoming to Ontario, Oregon, and all points in between those trucks are the Western Records Destruction Industrial Paper Shredding trucks. Bill Parks with Western Records joins us. Bill, thanks so much for being with us today. Let's talk about this idea. What are some of the things that you see at businesses that just surprise you when it comes to destroying those sensitive documents?
Probably the biggest thing that I see that really is a surprise is the number of businesses that try to avoid the cost of destroying material that needs to be destroyed.
By simply putting them in a dumpster, or?
Probably the biggest thing is try to take it to the local recycle guy, throwing it out in the local dumpster. We run into this almost on a weekly basis. The number of companies would astound you that try to, they don't shred themselves, they don't want to pay for having the material destroyed. So what they do is they just basically go to the local recycler and dump it off. And it's a very, very, it could cost them a lot of money. I mean, the FTC's out there watching for this kind of thing, and if they get caught, the fines are insurmountable. It's something that could put people out of business.
Now, I was on your website, and the labels you have attached to what Western Records does as far as certifications. The certifications are numerous, and so you really have to know your business and what's going on. What is the risk and the liability associated with a business just throwing those papers out in the dumpster?
Well, with the new HIPAA laws and the FACTA laws and the Gramm-Leach laws, you know, there was a hospital, for example, in Texas recently that left 6 boxes out that were basically obtained out back. It cost them $900,000. That was their fine.
Almost $1 million.
Almost $1 million for 6 boxes. And we have multiple numbers times that happen every day, where somebody will try to bring in pallets and pallets of material, and we'll recognize it as something that's confidential or that has a lot of identity on it, so security numbers, addresses, births, financial information, and they're trying to recycle this stuff. And this stuff could end up in the Philippines. It could end, you know, when it goes out in a recycle, whole recycle, it will end up any place. And there's a lot of identity thieves in these places. They literally
that are just looking for opportunity.
Just looking for opportunity.
So as you walk into a business, I would assume that you're experienced enough in this realm where you start a mental checklist of things that you're looking for. Share some of those things with us so that the businesses that are watching can start that mental checklist.
The first thing I do when I walk into a business, I recognize, where is the loose paper? Where is the contained paper? Is it secure? And some places are great. I mean, they do a great job of keeping that material secure. But others don't. You literally could walk down a hall and take a handful of material if you wanted to in some of these businesses. And, you know, it's one of those things that you go through a tremendous amount of dedication to find that one records destruction company to take care of your stuff correctly, and you go through making sure they do background checks and drug testing, and then you turn around and hire a cleaning company that maybe is somebody's aunt, you know, that has absolutely no security levels of security, and they can really. There's been, as you well know, some situations where cleaning companies actually have people go to work for them with the explicit idea of stealing material from businesses.
It's accessible. So step number 1 for the business is any sensitive document needs to be locked with limited access.
And secured, yes.
Locked and secured with limited access. And one other thing as we run out of time, as you go into that business, your mental checklist.
Well, you know, obviously I look to see if somebody's using anything, if they're actually doing some shredding of their own.
Okay.
I mean, that's something I'm looking for, because I'm always trying to sell that business in taking care of that material properly. And I know that if they don't take care of it properly, that it's something we have to do. We make it a point as our company to educate those people and try to get them in line with what HIPAA does and what FACTA does and what Gramm-Leach does, so that they know.
Important to know. Bill Parks, Western Recycling and Records Destruction, thanks so much for being with us today. Great information. The Better Business Bureau has a number of resources to help people find the best companies in Idaho, and BBB helps companies sell ethically. Find us online, bbb.org. Coming up next on the show, we stop in on an East Idaho car dealer for some common sense advice on staying safe. You're watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. Welcome back to Business at its Best. Better Business Bureau's chief storyteller Rob Hicken took the BBB camera to Teton Toyota for a conversation with owner Tony Hernandez about fighting scams.
The internet plays a significant role, I think, in people's shopping process today. It's really nice because people can do some of their research, whether it's going out on Consumer Reports or Better Business Bureau sites and checking out the place they may want to buy their car or the type of car they want to buy. It narrows down and expedites the process when they get here. But nothing replaces a test drive. Car that looks good online may not be mechanically sound, or it may have been have a branded title or something in that nature. And there's always the buyer beware when you're purchasing anything, making certain that you're dealing with a reputable company. But some of the scams that we see is people who are who are doing something online. They want you to get their transport company approved, or they want you to bring cash to a location to buy a car. Sometimes if a deal sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. When you see a vehicle that's way underpriced over all the other ones you've seen, there's probably an issue with that vehicle, either a title issue, a safety issue, or maybe it's somebody just wanting to get your cash. So searching on the internet and finding the kind of cars you like on the internet are good, but there's nothing like dealing with a business that you know is reputable, that's been in business for a number of years, that you know you have some recourse to come back to that business if things aren't right. Our philosophy here has always been, no problem, and we put that on everything that we do. It's on our plate frames, it's in all our advertising, because we want people to understand it doesn't have to be a big, drawn out, all day, back and forth process to buy a car. It can be simple, and an educated customer is our best customer.
Now, grab your pen and paper. We have one last checklist to help you fight fraud, whether you are the customer or whether you're the business. So take a look at this. First of all, do business with companies you know and trust. If you don't know them, check them out. bbb.org is a great place to start. And then you're going to need to understand the offers as you go through this process of fighting fraud, understanding exactly what is involved when you make payment. Then check those bills that come through to you. Be sure that you're actually buying what you expect and there aren't additional things tacked on to that bill. Guard the information you do have so that it's not getting into the hands of those who are around you. Be sure things are locked up, as Bill Parks shared with us, locked up and secure with limited access. And finally, spend time educating your employees about fighting fraud inside of your business so they know what to watch for, whether it's that stolen credit card or something that's not supposed to be on the bill. That does it for this edition of Business at its Best. Make this a great week. We'll see you back here next week.